We're talking to head coach Shane Richardson, previewing the spring practice season that starts on Friday morning at the practice fields behind Grace P. Johnson Stadium. Coach, I told you before we got on camera, you're a hard guy to get a hold of these days with all the meetings you go to, but talk about the prep that goes into spring practice from a coaching standpoint, and kind of like what you've been doing all this week to get ready for tomorrow.
Sure. Well, one of the things with the prep is, our coaching staff was just filled out recently, and so we've had to catch a lot of guys up to speed, and so we've had to go through a lot more detail and expectations and guidelines of things than probably normal. And so we've had to do that on top of preparing for, what's going to go into each practice. And so, we've got 2 back-to-back here this weekend, and so we've got to make sure that we're ready to go with those. And just with all the meetings that are going to take place with the players, we've got to make sure we got a great plan and are organized of what our message is going to be to them. And then obviously when we get on the field, we've got to make sure that we're on the same page and what we're doing from each drill and from all the expectation standpoint. So there's been a lot of prep, a lot of work that's gone in, and really all three phases of the game has had to spend a significant amount of time of just meeting and getting on the same page.
Now, by no means, obviously what you just explained, by no means has this team been sitting idle since the loss to North Alabama in the playoffs. Talk about what your team has done over the last 4 months, 3.5, 4 months, particularly in the weight room. I know you spent a lot of time there, but what are some of the other things you've done between the last whistle of last season and heading into tomorrow?
Sure. No, we like you say, we've been going really hard in the weight room and then on the field with conditioning drills as well. But I think one thing that we've been able to do this spring that has really started to show, and I think really infiltrate among the guys, is we've been able to create some competitive situations with the guys and be able to kind of let them understand that every day that we show up, it's a competition, and we're trying to get better, and we're trying to sharpen each other and trying to do everything that we can to really battle each other and know that at the end of the day we're still on the same team. But we've competed pretty hard against each other with some things and been able to create some nice atmospheres and drills that we're able to do that.
Now let's talk about a stark contrast to last season. Return just 9 starters heading into this season, or heading into the 2014 campaign. 5 on defense, 4 on offense. Does that then make, with the youth movement now, does that make things a little bit more challenging during the spring?
Well, I think so. You want guys that are have already been in the program, have been in the routine, have known maybe what some of the expectations are to lead the way. And so with new guys and with youth, and obviously with some new leaders in the coaches, you've got to retrain that. You've got to set those things straight and make sure that guys are understanding exactly in detail what's taking place and what the expectation is. So, from a experience standpoint, I think we've got guys that have been on the field, and those guys need to continually step up. And we've been doing some things as far as trying to train some leadership and foster some leadership, and so hopefully some of those guys will start taking the lead here.
Now, with that being said, you said you have some leaders taking shape. Can you identify maybe 1 to 2 leaders on each side of the ball heading into tomorrow? I know it may change by the end of spring practice, but who are maybe 1 to 2 leaders on each side of the ball that you expect to sort of take the reins tomorrow?
Sure. Well, I think offensively, Josh White, our center, comes to mind. He's a guy that actually touches the ball every play, and he has a nice feel and a nice presence and a nice confidence to be able to step up into a role where I think he can be vocal and yet still set a great example of what things should look like. Also, I think, at the quarterback position, there's been some guys that have been vocal. We'll see who can kind of step up out of that position to, become more of a leader. I think that's a natural leadership position. And so we're going to need somebody, 1 to 2 to 3 guys potentially step up and, with that quarterback position there. On defense, I think there's a couple guys that have great potential that have been around the system, been around the program, and have a nice maturity and experience with that. A couple linebackers, who's Darkus Elliott, who's not going through spring right now, but I anticipate he'll be a guy that we can count on to really take a great leadership role. Danny Atkins, he's injured this spring, but he'll be a nice voice and a good presence out there on the field. He'll be able to work back into some drills and do some things, and so he'll have a good presence in some of the meetings and that type of thing. And then I think in the secondary, there's a few guys back there that have been around. L.J. Stroman should be able to set a great example out there. Dominic Bridges, as well as Brandon Fulton, has been doing a great job for us as well.
You mentioned quarterback. I'd imagine that's one of the questions you're going to bring up. But yeah, coaches always go into spring practice with a lot of questions. How are you going to recover from last year? How are you going to fill the holes from last year? You will have a lot of questions heading into the first of 15 spring practice sessions tomorrow. But what are some, maybe one or two questions that you hope to have answered pretty quickly?
Sure. I think we've got to find who's going to replace the quarterback position, and so that's going to be, I think, an obvious one that people are going to look at, and we're excited about the competition that's going to take place there. I think we've got some guys there that are ready to compete and ready to step up to the challenge there, and it'll be fun to watch that take place. And so I think that'll be a big one naturally. And then I think going along with that, offensively, what our identity is going to be and what that looks like. And so, coaches always have a plan and are organized with a philosophy of it, but once you get on the field and you match that with the personnel, it could take a little bit of a different form. And so I think it'll be interesting to see, kind of how the offense, will eventually shake out in that aspect also.
Now, you made two pretty big announcements concerning your coaching staff over the last week. Promotion of O.C. Williams to defensive coordinator, and then you brought on Johnny Cox from North Carolina A&T as your new offensive coordinator. I know you have filled your staff. There will be two announcements that come later in the spring, maybe even earlier in the summer. But talk about your staff, how comfortable you are with who you have in place, and talk about some of the new guys that maybe we haven't announced yet.
Yeah, extremely comfortable with the staff, and we've been really spending a lot of time together behind a closed door and sitting around a table and really hashing a lot of things out. And so, O.C. Williams has been here for the last 7 years and feel very comfortable with, what he's been able to bring to the table and just the relationship that he and I have had working really closely together on defense. And so I anticipate nothing but good things from him, as well as Johnny Cox, whom I've known for I think 11 years or so, and so feel very comfortable with who he is and what we're getting there as a coach and as a person. And so couldn't be more confident with those two coordinator positions with the two guys that we have in place there. And so I feel really good about those guys. And then the two new guys, our receivers coach, Billy Lindquist, and our offensive line coach, Louis Rodriguez. Those guys will come in and do a fantastic job. They've been in the mix and they've been excited to get here. They really, have shown the ability to be hungry to get here at UNC Pembroke and be excited about what we have going here. And they have been on board ever since and have done a really good job of just working late and getting up early and trying to get caught up to speed here in a short amount of time. So really excited about the staff.
Well, let's talk about you now. Obviously, the new role for you this year. How has the adjustment been? I mean, you're going into the spring now. How has the adjustment been from defensive coordinator going into the spring to now head coach going into the spring?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think, going in as a head coach, you've got to kind of look at things from a totality standpoint and really see the whole entire team and understand that there's a few more pieces, a few more parts, a few more people that you're responsible to oversee. And so, it's been a little bit of an organizational process and making sure that, I've been able to plan ahead and do some things to make sure that I'm staying on top of things. But, I think from the defensive coordinator perspective, I did it on a little bit of a smaller scale with half the team, and now I've got to do it with the full team and make sure that everybody is, hearing the same message and understanding, kind of our guidelines, our expectations, and the philosophy that we stand for, and continually communicate that as the head coach. And so it's been very enjoyable. It's been a great challenge as well, but our guys have responded tremendously, and really looking forward to a great spring football season.